listeners, and welcome to Season 5 of Bones of the Story. We are so excited to be here. 5 is a very good number. And today on this episode, we're doing one of our tropes genres, and we are talking about retelling and inspired by, and in typical Jenn and Mistie fashion, no prep at all. Which I know we say that a lot, but I feel like it's important because I feel like it makes it more authentic. We've tried to do a couple of episodes where we have like bullet points and like a script, and it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. It's like we're trying to get the message of what we wrote down, even though we wrote it and we could change it. We're like, nah, like this is what we're trying to get to, and then it's it's just not authentic. So retelling and inspired by. And the reason why we have both is because I feel like there is a distinct difference. You have a retelling, which is like,
Yeah.
let's talk. Beauty and the Beast is a really popular one. Like
Yeah.
you're retelling the story of a Beauty and a Beast getting together. Maybe there's a curse, maybe there's not a curse, maybe there's magical, realism, maybe there's not. Maybe it's just because one is pretty, one is ugly. Well, I don't mean to say ugly, but like they're not happy with themselves. And then so that would be considered a retelling to me. Something that's
Yeah.
inspired by means that it doesn't follow the layout or the
Mhm.
template of what the story is, depending on if you're looking at the Disney version, the Grimm brothers, Hans Anderson, Christian. What?
What?
Huh? There's two Fable people. Hans
Oh, I don't know. Hans and Hans.
Anderson Christian Hans Christian Andersen. Sorry. And depending on because like the original fables are, in Beauty and the Beast, Belle had sisters,
Yeah.
Snow had a sister.
Yeah.
So it just depends. And I sometimes like a mixture of both. I like the inspired by. So I think the Never Kings is an inspiration. It's inspired by. I don't actually think it's
Yeah. I would definitely. I mean,
an actual retelling.
I think like it's marketed as a retelling, but for the sake of this episode, it would definitely be more like inspired by
Yeah.
because aside from him like stealing Wendy, oh, he doesn't even steal Wendy. He steals a darling.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Well, and you have the Lost Boys, but
And Tinkerbell. But yeah, so inspired by means that you take the elements of it and
yeah.
then you put a spin on it and your own spin. And I kind of really like that about the inspired buys, which is why I'm really excited about the books that we have lined up for this season, because some of them are retellings and some of them are just inspired by.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else to say about this. I figured we would have a lot to say, but maybe we don't.
Do you have like a favorite retelling or inspired by that isn't on the list for this season?
Yes, I actually do. I don't know if it's a favorite. So I like, with the retelling of Beauty and the Beast, when the beast is actually a beast and he stays a beast. Monster romance lover here. Come on, that should not surprise anybody
No,
listening.
no,
Okay.
it shouldn't.
There is one that I read to where he's cursed and he's the beast, and then they break the curse and he reverts back to human, but I like that he was actually the beast and she was with the beast the whole entire time, and that they
Mm.
had history before he was cursed and she didn't know. Oh, what is that called? It's called something, and it's great. And then there was another one that I read to where it was like a family curse. It was like a generational curse. And that one was really good. Like I said, no prep. I don't know what the name of any of these are, Jen. What about you? Why I try and find these names?
So, I mean, I would like, I don't know. don't know that I have a favorite. Like, I mean, if I had to say a favorite, it'd be ACOTAR because it's a like people say it's a Beauty and Beast retelling, but like I
No,
don't
it's
agree with that.
not.
Yeah. So I don't know that I've read. Ooh, I mean, my favorite. Okay, yeah, I would say my favorite retellings would be the Dark Olympus series by Katie Robert.
Okay.
I live for every single release she does of that series. They're so good, so spicy. The diversity in them is just chef's kiss. And as the series has continued, the overarching plot has continued to really grow and ramp up. And that's been very fun.
Okay. Okay. I have a tab on my not a tab, a shelf on my Goodreads, and I have it marked for retellings. And so I'm looking at all these. And I'm like, oh, I forgot I read all these. I read some really good ones. So let's see. The one that I was talking about to where he stays the beast and returns the beast is called To Love a Monster.
Mm.
I can't see the author's name. Let me see.
I don't know. I really enjoyed A Ruin of Roses by K.F. Breen too.
That that's probably another thing that we should talk about. Like the first book being a retelling, and then the rest of the series is kind of
No,
like
yeah,
nothing to do with it.
yeah, definitely agree there.
So that could possibly be why for ACOTAR because of the Court of Thorn and Roses. I can see that being, but the rest
Yeah,
of the series, no, not at
right.
all.
Yeah.
The one where it was the generational curse, that's called Maid Beast. It's the Curse Maid series, and it's a mafia too, so that makes it even better.
Okay.
But then I've read some other things. So, like, I read the Lunar Chronicles, which is a young adult. That's really good. It's like dystopian, post apocalyptic. You have Cinder and Scarlet and Cress and Winter. Dorinda Jones, The Dirt on Ninth Grave, is kind of like a Sleepy Hollow kind of inspired by story. I hate to admit this on the podcast, but I have some historical romance books on here that are inspired, like The Black Lion by, you know, Jude. I'm not even gonna try and say her last name. Like, we already know I can't speak names. So yeah, I don't have all of them up to dated, but up to date,
Up to dated.
up to dated. But oh, Patricia Briggs' Smoke Bitten, which is book 12 in the Mercedes Thompson, is kind of inspired by Rumpelstiltskin. That was actually really good.
That's interesting.
Uh-huh. Cathy Yardley did an erotic series, and so she has a trilogy. One is about one is about Beauty and the Beast. I think one is about Snow White, and I think one is about Sleeping Beauty. I can't remember. That was really good. So yeah. It's also interesting when people say, now we're gonna talk about the bad side. It's also interesting when people say that it's inspired by a retelling and then you read it and you're like, you're a lying
Where?
piece of shit.
Yeah.
And you just did this for marketing. I just don't like when authors lie. That
Yeah.
irritates me. Now, if it has some kind of inspired by, and it truly does, like I need something in the back of the book to be like, hey, this is where I pulled this inspiration from. This is how it built. I need, it's almost kind of like fan fiction. Like I need to know where it's coming from, where you're getting this off, because otherwise I think that you're lying and then I'm never going to read you again. Which fan
Yeah.
fiction, I wouldn't I mean, I guess fan fiction can be both. It can be a retelling and inspired by. I enjoy fan fiction. I used to read Buffy and Angel and Spike fan fiction when I was younger. I used to write Buffy and Angel fan fiction
God, that's so funny.
when I was in high school.
I only wrote one fanfic. It was very, very short. And it
Oh yeah.
was like it was just what the ending that I needed to the book that I had like recently finished. And it was left on this huge cliffhanger before the next book came out. And I was like, I just need the ending. So I just wrote it myself.
I like that. And there's some really good fanfics. I mean, there's some authors who, they say 50 Shades was based off of Twilight fanfic.
Yeah.
Hannah Todd Her After series is based off of One Direction fanfic.
Mm-hmm.
What was another one?
I think the idea of you was based off of fanfic too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Harry Styles fanfic.
That's crazy.
Isn't that wild?
It's so wild.
Yeah. I've never read fanfic, as far as I know.
Yet.
Yet. It's on the list for this season, actually. It'll be my first
Yet.
fanfic. I'm just
That's
jumping
so
into the
crazy.
deep end.
Fanfic is I love fanfic for the reason that you just said that you wrote it was to be able to write the story that you want. We've
Yeah.
talked about it on the podcast. Like, we pretend like, oh, it would have been so much great if this was how it went. Like, we're essentially like verbally making fanfic because we're
Yeah.
changing the story. Maybe one day we'll write one. We should pick one and we should do it, Jen, you and
We
I.
should.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
It would.
I don't know what else. I think this is going to be a very short episode.
That's okay. I think, now y'all know what's coming, what this season's going to be about. But I will say this. You all, I mean, if you're here, you know we're dark romance readers. We know, like, that's what we read a lot of. But I feel like this season is going to be pretty heavy as far as content goes. So if you read the books along with us or you decide to read the books, I'm always a big advocate for checking your trigger and content warnings.
That was very nice. That was sweet of you to look out for our listeners. I wasn't even thinking about them.
I mean, I feel like, we know we read dark romance, we know the content, but like the dark romance that we read last season, Unholy Vows, Carter Reed, Lights Out, like if those were the higher ranked books, I feel like the content's going to be heavier and not as like interspersed with light content as this season.
That's a good point. And we didn't do that on purpose, we promise.
No, we didn't. In fact, last season was supposed to be like the Halloween spooky darker season, and then the books just didn't do it. So
Things happen and change, but we definitely wanted to have a season because this is now becoming like a popular thing. Like you have the what's the McIntyre series? There's lots of series that are coming out. Fairy tale retellings are inspired by. And
oh
so
yeah,
there's just so many.
there's so many.
And there
There's
are some that aren't even on the radar and they're like old school, like number 73. Like that's old school, like OG. So
yeah,
that's definitely going to be interesting. And
yeah.
we made sure, and again, you guys know some of this may happen, some of it may not. Things might get, mixed up, but we made sure to touch on quite a few different storylines.
Yeah. Yeah, and some I'm sure you've heard before, and some you might not have. And, well, never mind, I don't want to give it away. Never mind.
So remember this moment, and whenever it comes up, be like, if you listen to this is what I was
Remember
talking about.
this moment. Sorry, you said Taylor Swift lyrics, so my brain just immediately starts. I'm even wearing a bookish Taylor Swift sweatshirt today.
I know, it's super cute.
I love that song so much.
Which song is it?
Long Live.
Oh, what album?
I think Long Live was on Speak Now.
Oh, okay.
Listen, if I'm wrong, y'all, don't come for me.
Let's see. You said Long Live Taylor Swift.
Okay. I can't figure out which album this was.
Oh, it's Speak Now. You're right.
Ha! Yes! I just got like a punch on my Swiftie card.
Oh my gosh. That was the best thing I've ever heard. That I don't think we can top that in this episode, so I feel like you should just close us out after that.
That's fair.
She got a punch on her Taylor Swiftie Card membership card, and now we hope that you enjoy the rest of the season.
That is not anything like Taylor Swift. Unless it's maybe her Reputation era.
Oh, which is my favorite.
All right, y'all. Let us know. Oh my God, what? I don't know. Oh, here we go. Okay, so let us know, what do you think about fairy tale retellings? If you prefer actual retellings or things that are lightly inspired by. And as always, please tag us on Instagram at Bones of the Story when you share, because we would love to see your faces. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the journey into the shadows of love, where dark romance stories come to light.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Bones of the Story as much as we did. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us.
And to stay updated on all things dark romance, follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
We'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, ideas, or even your own dark romance stories with us. Drop us a line at bonesofthestory@gmail.com.
Remember, our next tantalizing episode is just around the corner, so keep your hearts open and your senses sharp.
Until then, embrace the darkness and let the stories continue to stir your deepest desires.
This is Misty
and Jenn,
signing off
from Bones of the Story.